We are here at the On3 NIL Elite Series with the man who is synonymous with college football. You wake up on a Saturday morning, he's on College game day, he's calling the biggest game of the week that day, and another from Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk, how we doing? Glad to have you here, man. Fired up to have you back in Nashville.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. Still have my home here.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it feel kind of like weird? Is it like seeing an old friend? Like it's good to be back?
Yeah, it's such a great town. We moved here in 2011, and so we were here for about 10 years, and I have 4 sons. I moved my youngest son up to St. X, up in Cincinnati. He's a rising junior, so 2 more years of Cincinnati, and then we'll move back to Nashville.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Want to talk some ball with you just all across the country. Before we get to that, though, you wrote a book called Out of the Pocket. You talk about your playing style and how you feel like it actually lends itself more to the modern game than maybe at that point in time. So I had to ask you, what offensive coordinator does a college Kirk Herbstreit fit best with?
Well, I would say the Joe Moorhead offense when he was at Penn State.
Okay.
That would be the offense. Or Chip Kelly when he was at Oregon.
Running gun, up-tempo.
Like just the zone read game, RPO game, running and throwing. I was more of a dual guy when you're supposed to be a 7-step drop back guy. So I would have loved the offenses in today's game. But yeah, Chip Kelly with Oregon and Joe Moorhead when he had Trace McSorley.
Yeah, that was an explosive offense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll start with
would have helped to have Saquon. Although I had Eddie George and Robert Smith, who were 2 pretty good backs in those days.
Not a bad situation at all.
Yeah.
Well, another program that has 2 pretty good backs, Michigan.
Yeah.
Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, back-to-back Big Ten titles. What's it going to take for them to get over the hump and win a national title?
You know, when I hear over the hump, I think they should have been in the national championship last year. I mean, I respect TCU. But let's face it, I think you and I and everybody that watched that game, we were impressed with what we saw from TCU that game and, you know, the way they made so many explosive plays. But I think going into it, I think if we thought about that Michigan was going to win the game, and so to think, what do they have to do to get over the hump? I would have said that after they lost to Georgia in the fashion in which they did. But against TCU, man, I just feel like just a couple plays here or there. So I don't think they change a whole lot of anything. You mentioned the 1-2 punch in the backfield. The way they've recruited in recent years, they've got great skill on the outside. They're always going to have linemen. And then JJ is I think, proven himself to be a guy that you can win a lot of games with. So I think they're in a great spot, you know, and they get Ohio State at home. So, you know, it's Jim, I feel like, has taken his program to the highest level that it's been at since he's been in Ann Arbor. And if they can stay healthy, they're going to have a real shot this year.
I mean, they got J.J. McCarthy coming back.
Yeah.
Tennessee, unfortunately, doesn't have that luxury. Joe Milton going to be the starter for them in Knoxville. What are your expectations for him as they try and pick up where they left off in 2022?
Well, everybody looks at Joe Milton since he was at Michigan and sees him throw the ball 75 or 80 yards and, oh, man, it's crushing these chairs. Sees him throw it 75 or 80 yards and just thinks, oh, my gosh, yeah, he's going to be better than what we had last year with Hooker. He had a great bowl game against Clemson, but with him, it's not about his physical ability. It's just about the consistency with his accuracy. So if he can be what we saw against Clemson, then it's like, here we go. You know, just they're not going to miss a beat. And that offensive style, I'm going to predict right now. Let's see, Oklahoma runs it, a version of it. Ole Miss runs it. You know, TCU is going to be running it. I mean, there's versions of it out there. I call it the Art Briles offense, essentially, from the Baylor days. Yeah. Where they, you know, your receiver on literally 2 yards off the sideline over here, 2 yards off the sideline over here, spread you out, create those vertical seams. And then depending on what alignment the defense is in, you're either going to run the ball with a light box, or if they overload, now you can hit the one-on-one shot. I think you're going to see more and more of that offense in college football. Milton has that offense to his advantage. They'll have great receivers. They lose a couple. But I think I want to see him be more consistent. Like I said, decision-making and accuracy, we know what he can do with the ball in his hands.
It's funny, everybody says that offense is so quarterback-friendly, like it's like a negative thing.
Yeah.
Like, scores a lot of points. A lot of people are running that offense.
I think people are going to start to mimic it. I think a lot of people are going to study what Tennessee did last year, and they're going to try to create those one-on-one. You said you spent a lot of time down in Waco. You know about that offense. And as a defensive guy, you're always one man short. If you're light in the boxing, you got a line, and if you have a quarterback like last year with Hooker, you're always short. So you got to get a safety down, and now you're playing zero. And now you got to find one receiver who can win one-on-one. So
Strike up the band.
I like that offense. I think you'll see more and more of it this year.
Without a doubt. Well, Nebraska, don't know if they'll be running that kind of offense, but Matt Rule, the new head coach there, what's it going to take for them to get back to their former glory? How do you see him fitting in Lincoln?
Well, you're talking to a massive Matt Rule fan. You know, I'm a big believer in him and the culture that he creates. I'll be more surprised if he can't do it than if he can. You know, and again, I thought when Scott Frost went back home, I thought it would click too. I mean, they have resources, they have history and tradition. Now, people will say in 2023 they're in Lincoln, Nebraska. Who wants to go and play there? But if you have the right coach who can create that energy, then I think you can bring recruits in. I think he'll recruit Texas. I think he'll get into Southern California. I think he'll even try to get into Florida and New Jersey, going back to the Tom Osborne glory days. I'm not saying this year, here they come, but you're going to start to see some signs of Nebraska starting to kind of be like, and I think he's going to recruit. Again, he did it at Baylor. When he went to Baylor, I don't think anybody thought Baylor would be able to win any games.
No.
And he got them competing for Big 12 championships. So the guy will do it, knows how to coach, knows how to recruit. He's coming. I just don't know when it's going to be.
Feels like he creates structure,
Yeah.
and that's really what Nebraska
100%.
needs from the outside looking in, at least. And I mean, I'm excited to see what he does.
I am too.
Now, Texas, obviously, very polarizing brand, probably one of the most high-profile quarterback rooms in all the country, with Arch Manning in there, Quinn Ewers in there. What did you think of the critiques around Arch Manning's spring game?
Well, he's been on campus for a few weeks, and we're going to sit there and have definitive comments about who he is. I wasn't surprised. I mean, people, and again, it's the world we're in. Like, what's the latest name? I mean, Quinn Ewers was the most anticipated brand name to come out of high school football in forever. And all of a sudden, here comes Arch Manning, and it's like, oh, yeah. What about Arch? It's like, wait, the guy you just threw to the side, he's supposed to be really good. And talking and listening to the Texas folks off the air, it sounded like it was pretty obvious. The Quinn and the experience. Think about what he's been through. Went to Ohio State as essentially a senior in high school, ends up going back, transfers to Texas, back home, deals with a lot of scrutiny. And what that does is that hardens you. You know what I mean? From being around this game. And when you can become a hardened veteran, you become a different guy. And not to mention how he played last year. There were some ups, but there were some downs. And he had to endure that. So what you see now, even though he's only in a first year getting done, is a guy that's been through it. And I think it allows him to play at a different level of maturity. Arch has probably got a really bright future. But for me, right now it's Quinn Ewers' chance. It's his opportunity. It's his team. And until he leaves, I think that'll be the case. And then we'll see what Arch can do down the road.
Without question. Oklahoma, 6-7 last year. Year one under Brent Venables. The preseason win total for them is set at like 9.5 wins. For you, how do you think Oklahoma factors into the Big 12 title race this coming season?
The big thing is for me, it's Brent Venables' second year. And you know what? It's like that first year, and think about what happened with OU, with Caleb Williams leaving with Lincoln Riley, and it was just like, what are we doing? Where's this thing going to go? And he has to, even though he's an OU guy with his background, he still had to kind of like just calm the waters a little bit, which I think he's done. And now it's a matter of, okay, now you're starting to bring in your guys. Now the turnover's a little bit more the way, kind of your identity. And he's such Brent, because of not just his time with Bob and Norman, but I think really he changed as a coach and how he looks at things when he went to work for Dabo. And I think now he understands the importance of loving on the kids and the culture. And that takes time sometimes to really seeing the rewards of that take place. So I think they can get good play at the quarterback spot. I think they're going to be good enough around the quarterback that I think they're gifted enough. They're always going to be a factor in the Big 12. One last year before they go to the big boys.
That's where we were going. I feel like looking at my notes down here. I mean, that's the next thing for them, and maybe why there's such a sense of urgency maybe within that fan base, because they're getting to the SEC, them in Texas, waiting for them. Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, they're back-to-back national champs. How do they look this year, maybe compared to the last 2 years where they've won the national title?
Well, they've lost so much. The culmination of the last 2 years is just a reality when you win that many championships back-to-back, which we haven't seen in so long. And it's not just a class from 2 years ago when the Kobe Dean and that group, where all those guys from the defense were first round, I think 5 in the first round that year. But I think then the guys that a lot of those guys that stepped in last year, and they had a chip on their shoulder, and they were anxious to prove to people that we can still play defense even though we lost those guys. Now some of those guys go as well. So you're really looking at a new wave. Stetson Bennett's no longer there. Some new skill. Now what I love is, to Kirby's credit, what he learned from Nick Saban is avoiding complacency, finding a way to get a team tweaked, kind of like upset. People don't believe in you. People like this year. He was talking about, we try to tell you guys, everybody doubted us. I'm like, what were you, preseason 3, 2? I mean, no one doubted you. But he, to his credit, he found a way to get 18 to 22-year-old kids to buy into. They doubt you. They don't believe in you. You're the defending champ. Everyone believed in him. And he'll find another way this year to get his team mad at the world. So give him a lot of credit for coming up with a way to manipulate kind of the back-to-back defending champs. You don't have the guts to go 3 in a row or whatever it's going to be. But he'll have a team, as always, the way they recruit. But will it come together, to make a run to get all the way to the end? The chemistry's got to come together, which they've had for 2 straight years. And also, can Beck be that guy? We know about his talent, but now that it's his turn, they lose a great leader, one of the best we've seen in Stetson Bennett. So I want to see what Carson Beck can do.
You mentioned Nick Saban. Obviously, Kirby Smart, having coached under him, he doesn't need to look for any motivation with the way that people are talking about his team right now. Kind of a reset of sorts, it feels like. I mean, new quarterback, new DC, new OC. What do you make of Alabama this year?
Whenever what you just described, whenever that happens in Tuscaloosa, if you're going to Vegas, just saying, that would be a team I would not want to question. Whenever they have a few losses, or whenever they don't quite chase their goals the previous year, and whenever, they got a new this and a new that and a new quarter, it's like, oh boy, Nick Saban's in trouble. I'm telling you, he's got the same energy he's had since 2009 when he won his first title against Texas. He's got great players like he had in 2009, maybe better. He's got a team that's going to be upset with a chip on their shoulder. As we sit here, what are we, May 31? It's hard for me not to lean towards Alabama in the SEC just because of what you described. Now, you got LSU, who made incredible strides in that first year with Brian Kelly. Got a lot coming back from that team. They beat Bama last year. They got to go to Tuscaloosa. So I would those 3 are going to be everybody's 3. As we sit here right now, I'm going to wait to see where we are in August. But I would be in that Bama LSU, just a little bit ahead of Georgia as we get ready for getting into the summer months.
You mentioned LSU, Brian Kelly. I mean, he's been there all of a year, and there's already the pressure of when do we get a national title? The guys before you did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got Florida State week 1, probably the most anticipated game, other than Coach Prime, what he's doing. An LSU Florida State game, I feel like has some excitement. But man, when you beat Alabama and you really outkick your coverage on what the expectations were, I feel like you're at LSU, the history of what the coaches have done with Coach O and Les Miles, it's pretty natural to expect that. But I think he's built for it. That guy, you imagine being the head coach at Notre Dame as long as he did. He's dealt with everything. So I think he'll be fine. I think LSU's got some players. If they win that first game against Florida State, they'll be dangerous.
No, without question. Kirk, we appreciate all your time.
You got it.
Last question for you. Your alma mater, Buckeyes. Like you said, it's May. Is there a feel to who could start at quarterback there right now?
I don't think they even know. I really don't. I think you got 2 guys that are more than capable. Ohio State's been pretty spoiled at that spot with their receivers since Ryan Day's taken over. They're going to find a way to put a lot of points on the board, regardless of which guy wins it. I think he'll go into summer camp. He'll have those scrimmages. And then I wouldn't be shocked if they use the first 2 or 3 games to kind of let these guys maybe play it out. It's hard to make a big decision like that from a scrimmage in the summer. It's only fair, like what Jim Harbaugh did last year.
Right.
Give a guy a half or a game, give the other guy the same thing, and then I think it's easier to make the decision.
Without question. Well, Kirk, like I said, we appreciate all your time. Appreciate you making it on here.
And congrats on everything.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you back on the television screens here very, very soon.
Yeah, it'll be soon.